The breaking point. Captain David Chen stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Promise and watched the stars shimmer against the darkness of space. He had made this journey between Earth and the outer colonies hundreds of times over his 20 years of service. Each trip felt the same, peaceful and routine. That was about to change forever. The communication officer's voice crackled through the ship's intercom system. "Captain, we are receiving multiple distress signals from Meridian Colony. The transmission is breaking up, but it sounds urgent." David moved quickly toward the bridge. His crew was already at their stations when he arrived. The main view screen showed static mixed with fragments of video feed from the colony. "Clean it up," David ordered. "I want to see what is happening down there." The technical team worked their controls and the image began to stabilize. What David saw made his blood run cold. Meridian Colony was burning. The sprawling cities that housed 3 billion humans were being torn apart by weapons fire from above. Ships with markings he recognized filled the sky. They belonged to the Tharos sovereignty. "Get me a direct line to the Galactic Union Council immediately," David said. His voice was steady but his hands gripped the edge of his command chair. The Tharos sovereignty was one of the founding members of the Galactic Union. They had treaties with humanity. They had signed peace agreements. They had promised cooperation and mutual respect. Now they were slaughtering human civilians without warning or explanation. The communications officer shook her head. "Sir, the Union Council is not responding to our hails. All of our diplomatic channels have been blocked." David felt something shift inside him. This was not a random attack. This was planned. This was coordinated. This was betrayal on a scale that humanity had never experienced in their 2.5 centuries among the stars. "How many people were living on Meridian?" he asked quietly. His first officer checked the data. 3,200,000,000 at last census, sir. The colony was our largest settlement outside the Sol system. David closed his eyes for a moment. 3 billion people. Gone. Just like that. He opened his eyes and looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders, waiting for him to make sense of the senseless. "Set course for Mars Station," he said. "Maximum speed. Send encrypted messages to all human vessels and colonies. Tell them to go to high alert. Tell them that everything has changed." The Harmony's Promise turned away from the dying colony and jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, Meridian Colony fell silent. 3 billion voices were extinguished. 3 billion lives were ended. And somewhere in the cold mathematics of the universe, a balance shifted. Mars Station was humanity's military and strategic headquarters. It orbited the red planet in a carefully maintained position that allowed constant monitoring of all approaches to the Sol system. When David arrived, the station was already buzzing with activity. Ships from across human space were converging on Mars. Admirals and generals who had spent decades managing peaceful exploration were now preparing for something they had hoped would never come. David was escorted to the main conference chamber. The room was circular with a domed ceiling that showed a real-time view of the space around Mars. At the center of the room was a large holographic display table. Around it stood the people who would decide humanity's response to this attack. President Elena Vasquez was there. She was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much in too short a time. Beside her stood Admiral Marcus Webb, the highest-ranking military officer in human space. There were others as well, representatives from the colonies, leaders of the scientific community, and intelligence officers whose faces David did not recognize. "Captain Chen," President Vasquez said. "You witnessed the attack on Meridian. Tell us everything you saw." David gave his report. He described the Tharos ships. He described the systematic destruction of the colony. He described how the diplomatic channels had been blocked. When he finished, silence filled the room. It was the silence of people who were trying to process the unprocessable. Admiral Webb spoke first. "We have confirmed similar attacks on 2 other colonies, New Haven and Prosperity Station. Total casualties are estimated at 5 billion humans. The Tharos sovereignty has released a statement to the Galactic Union claiming that humanity posed a threat to galactic stability and had to be removed. He paused. They are demanding our complete surrender and the evacuation of all human territories within 30 days. That is genocide, someone said. That is the systematic elimination of our entire species. President Vasquez nodded slowly. Yes, it is. And now we must decide how to respond. She gestured to a woman standing at the far end of the table. Dr. Sarah Morrison, please share your information with the group. Dr. Morrison was a physicist who had spent the last 40 years working in the most classified research facilities humanity operated. She stepped forward and activated a new display on the holographic table. What appeared made several people in the room gasp. Ships appeared on the display, warships unlike anything humanity had shown to the galaxy. Weapon systems that violated several galactic treaties appeared next. Then personnel files, millions of them, soldiers who had trained in secret for generations. For 250 years, Dr. Morrison began, humanity has presented itself to the galaxy as a peaceful species. We signed treaties limiting our military capabilities. We accepted restrictions on our expansion. We became known as the diplomats, the mediators, the species that preferred talk to action. She paused and looked around the room. It was all a lie. Or rather, it was a choice. We chose to appear weak because we remembered what we were capable of. We chose to accept limitations because we knew what unlimited humans could do. We chose peace because we had experienced war and we never wanted to return to it. She manipulated the holographic controls and the display changed to show Earth's history before first contact with alien species. Wars appeared on the screen. Conflicts that had consumed entire continents. Weapons that had nearly destroyed the planet. Our species evolved as hunters, Dr. Morrison continued. We are persistent predators. We do not have claws or fangs or natural armor. What we have is the ability to never give up. We chase our prey until it collapses from exhaustion. We survive conditions that kill other species. We adapt to anything. We overcome everything. She closed the historical display and returned to the military assets. When we joined the Galactic Union, our leaders made a decision. They looked at the galaxy and saw species that had conquered through force. They saw empires built on subjugation. They saw a system where might made right. And they decided that humanity would be different. Not because we could not compete with force, but because we could compete so effectively that we frightened ourselves. Admiral Webb took over the presentation. Project Prometheus was initiated 1 year after first contact. It has continued in absolute secrecy ever since. Every human colony has hidden bases. Every diplomatic ship has concealed weapons. Every civilian who volunteers for certain programs receives military training that goes far beyond anything we have shown the galaxy. We have prepared for this day while praying it would never come. He activated another display. We have 3,000 warships that the Tharos sovereignty knows nothing about. We have weapons platforms hidden in asteroid belts throughout our territory. We have agents embedded in every major alien civilization. We have been watching, learning, and preparing. President Vasquez stepped forward. The question before us now is simple. Do we use these capabilities? Do we show the galaxy what humanity truly is? Do we abandon 2.5 centuries of peace to pursue justice for 5 billion murdered souls? The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some argued for restraint. They said that becoming the monsters the Tharos claimed humans were would prove the aliens right. Others argued for total war. They said that mercy to mass murderers was a betrayal of the dead. President Vasquez listened to all of it. She heard the pain and anger and fear in every voice. Finally, she raised her hand for silence. I have made my decision, she said. Her voice was quiet but it carried absolute authority. We will activate Project Prometheus. We will show the galaxy what humanity has hidden. But we will do so with one critical limitation. We will destroy the Tharos sovereignty's ability to make war. We will dismantle their military infrastructure. We will hold their leaders accountable for genocide. But we will not target civilians. We will not become the evil that attacked us. She looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. The galaxy believes humans are weak because we choose peace. They think our patience is cowardice. They think our diplomacy is fear. They are about to learn the truth. We are not peaceful because we have no choice. We are peaceful because we have every choice and we chose mercy. Now they have taken that choice away from us. Dr. Morrison activated the communication systems that would broadcast to every human vessel and colony. President Vasquez stood before the cameras and prepared to deliver the message that would change everything. Behind her, the strategic display showed human ships beginning to move from their hidden positions. In underground bases across human space, soldiers who had trained in secret for their entire lives prepared to emerge. In research facilities protected by layers of security, weapons that had never been tested in combat were loaded onto ships. President Vasquez began to speak. Her words would be recorded and transmitted across the galaxy. Every species would hear them. Every civilization would understand what was coming. For 250 years, humanity has lived among you in peace. We accepted treaties that limited our growth. We accepted customs that restricted our freedom. We accepted insults to our dignity and challenges to our worth. We did all of this willingly because we believed in a better way. She paused and let the weight of what came next settle in her mind. The Pharaoh's sovereignty has murdered 5 billion humans in an unprovoked attack. They did this because they believed we were weak. They did this because they thought peace meant we could not fight. They did this because they never understood that mercy is not the same as helplessness. Her expression hardened. We tried peace. We chose diplomacy. We offered friendship to those who saw us as inferior. Now you will meet the other side of humans. Now you will understand what we held back. Now you will learn why we feared ourselves more than we feared you. The transmission ended. President Vasquez stood in the silence that followed and felt the future rushing toward them all. Across human space, ships began to move. Soldiers marched to deployment centers. Weapon systems came online after centuries of dormancy. And somewhere in the cold void between stars, the Pharaoh's sovereignty continued celebrating their victory, not knowing that they had awakened something that had chosen to sleep. Captain David Chen returned to his ship and found it transformed. The Harmony's Promise had always been a diplomatic vessel, designed for comfort and communication rather than conflict. Now its hidden systems were active. Weapons emerged from concealed bays. Armor plating extended over vulnerable sections. Advanced sensors that had been disguised as civilian equipment began scanning for threats. His crew looked different too. They moved with new purpose. They spoke with new authority. They had spent years training for this moment while hoping it would never arrive. Captain, his first officer said, "We have new orders. We are to join Battle Group 7 and proceed to the Pharaoh's border." David nodded. "Execute the orders. It is time to show them who we really are." The Harmony's Promise, no longer promising harmony but delivering justice, jumped to hyperspace. Behind it, thousands of other human ships followed. The galaxy was about to witness something that had not been seen in 2.5 centuries. Humanity at war. Humanity unrestrained. Humanity as it truly was beneath the veneer of civilization and diplomacy. In the Pharaoh's capital, military leaders celebrated their successful attack on the human colonies. They had eliminated what they saw as a growing threat. They had demonstrated Pharaoh's power to the entire galaxy. They had secured their position as the dominant force in their region of space. They did not know that human ships were already crossing into their territory. They did not know that their communications were being monitored and decoded. They did not know that every military installation they possessed had already been mapped and targeted. They did not know that humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they first encountered alien life. Admiral Webb stood in the command center on Mars Station and watched the tactical displays. Human forces were moving into position with a precision that came from decades of secret planning. All units report ready, an officer announced. Admiral Webb allowed himself a small, grim smile. Then let us begin. Let us show them what humans do when peace fails. Let us teach them why we chose mercy for so long. And let us make absolutely certain they never threaten humanity again. The order went out. Across hundreds of star systems, human forces struck simultaneously. The war had begun. But it would not be the war the Tharos expected. It would not be the war the galaxy anticipated. It would be something entirely different, something uniquely human, something that would reshape the balance of power among the stars forever. The Awakening Storm. Commander Jax Reeves had never fired a weapon in anger during his entire 20-year career. He had trained for combat every single day since he joined the service at age 18, but it had always been simulations and exercises. Now he stood on the bridge of the warship Relentless Dawn and prepared to engage real enemies who had killed real people. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. This was what he had been trained for. The Relentless Dawn emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Tharos home system. Around it, 300 other human warships materialized in perfect formation. They had covered the distance from human space in less than 6 hours. The Tharos military command was still celebrating their attack on Meridian Colony when the human fleet appeared on their sensors. Enemy vessels detected, the tactical officer announced. Tharos Defense Force is moving to intercept. Count is 400 ships, various classes. Jack studied the display. The Tharos ships were larger than human vessels. They were heavily armored and carried weapons that could devastate entire cities. The Galactic Union had allowed them this military strength because the Tharos claimed they needed protection from hostile neighbors. Humanity had accepted restrictions on their own fleet while the Tharos built an empire through intimidation. Commence Operation Silent Thunder, Jax ordered. His crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had rehearsed this operation thousands of times in secret training facilities. Now they executed it for real. The human ships split into smaller groups and began a complex dance through space. The Tharos formation tried to respond, but their movements were slow and predictable. They fought the way military powers had fought for thousands of years, with overwhelming force applied directly. Humans fought differently. The first wave of human ships swept past the Tharos lines without firing a shot. They released thousands of small drones that scattered through the Tharos formation. The Tharos commanders ignored them. They were focused on the main human fleet. That was their first mistake. The drones attached themselves to Tharos ships and began broadcasting false sensor data. Suddenly the Tharos fleet was seeing threats that did not exist and missing threats that did. Their communications are fragmenting, the communications officer reported. The drones are creating interference across all their military frequencies. Jax nodded. Proceed to Phase 2. The human fleet second wave attacked. They did not target the Tharos warships directly. Instead, they fired on specific points in space that calculations had determined would maximize confusion. Energy weapons created fields of charged particles that disrupted Tharos sensors even further. Missile spreads forced the Tharos formation to break apart to avoid collisions. Within 15 minutes, the massive Tharos defense force was scattered and blind. Individual ships fired widely at targets they could barely detect. Some of them hit each other. Most of them hit nothing at all. The human fleet moved through the chaos untouched. Target their command and control vessels, Jax ordered. Disable them but do not destroy them. We want prisoners for the war crimes tribunals. The Relentless Dawn targeted a Tharos command ship. Precision weapons struck the alien vessel's engines and communication arrays. The ship went dark and began drifting. Around it, the same scene played out dozens of times. Human ships picked apart the Tharos military infrastructure with surgical strikes. They destroyed weapons but left life support intact. They disabled propulsion but did not breach hulls. They took away the Tharos' ability to fight while leaving the crews alive to face justice. Admiral Krath commanded the Tharos home defense fleet from his flagship. He was a decorated warrior who had conquered 6 worlds for the sovereignty. He had crushed rebellions and broken enemies. He had never experienced defeat. Now he watched his fleet disintegrate around him and he could not understand what was happening. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were diplomats and merchants, not warriors. This was impossible. "Get me a communication link to the human commander," Krath ordered. His communications officer worked frantically at damaged controls. After several attempts, a connection was established. Jax Reeves' face appeared on Krath's view screen. The human looked calm, almost relaxed. There was no anger in his expression, no hatred, just absolute certainty. "I am Admiral Krath of the Tharos Sovereignty," Krath said. "You are attacking our home system. This is an act of war." Jax tilted his head slightly. "Admiral, you murdered 5 billion humans without warning or declaration of war. You attacked civilian colonies. You targeted cities full of families. You did this because you thought we were weak. You thought we would surrender rather than fight. You were wrong." Krath felt something cold settle in his chest. "Your species accepted limitations on military development. You signed treaties. You agreed to remain a minor power." Jax smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We signed those treaties because we chose to. We accepted those limitations because we decided that peace was worth more than pride. But you made a critical error, Admiral. You assumed that our choice to be peaceful meant we could not be dangerous. You confused mercy with weakness." The relentless Dawn fired again. Krath's flagship shuddered as more systems went offline. "We are disabling your military capabilities across your entire territory," Jax continued. "Every warship, every weapons platform, every military installation. We are taking them offline without killing your crews. We are doing this because we are not you. We do not slaughter civilians. We do not commit genocide. We fight with honor even when our enemies have none." Krath looked at his tactical display. The human fleet was everywhere. They moved faster than Tharos ships. They struck with impossible precision. They seemed to know exactly where every Tharos military asset was located. "How long have you been preparing for this?" Krath asked quietly. Jax considered the question. "Since the day we met your species. Since the moment we realized that the galaxy operated on principles of strength through conquest. We knew that eventually someone would test us. We knew that our commitment to peace would be seen as an invitation to violence. So we prepared. We built a military force in secret. We trained soldiers in hidden facilities. We developed weapons that no one knew existed. And we waited." He paused. "We waited for 250 years, Admiral. We hoped that we would never need to use what we had created. We hoped that the galaxy would evolve beyond the cycle of violence that has defined it for millennia. But you proved that our hope was misplaced. You proved that some species will always choose destruction over cooperation. So now we are showing you what we held back. Now we are teaching you the lesson that you forced upon us." Krath's flagship went dark as the last of its systems failed. Through the view screen, he could see human ships moving methodically through the remains of his fleet. They were not celebrating. They were not reveling in victory. They were just doing their job with grim efficiency. "What happens now?" Krath asked. Jax's expression softened slightly. "Now you face justice. You and every other Tharos leader who ordered the attack on our colonies will stand trial. The evidence will be presented. Your actions will be judged. If you are found guilty, you will be punished. But you will receive a fair trial, which is more than you gave the 5 billion humans you murdered." The communication ended. Krath sat in the darkness of his disabled ship and contemplated the ruins of everything he had believed. The Tharos sovereignty had been built on the principle that military might determine value in the galaxy. The strong ruled and the weak served. It had been this way for thousands of years. Now a species that had chosen to appear weak had demonstrated strength that made the Tharos look primitive. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched the human offensive unfold. The Galactic Union Council convened in emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to observe and debate. The view screen showed human forces striking Tharos military targets across a dozen star systems. The precision of the attacks was shocking. The restraint was unprecedented. Ambassador Theron of the Viridian Collective addressed the council. The humans have hidden their true capabilities for centuries. They deceived us all. This demonstrates that they cannot be trusted. President Elena Vasquez, attending via holographic projection from Earth, responded immediately. We did not deceive you, Ambassador. We simply chose not to flaunt our strength. We signed treaties limiting our military development, and we honored those treaties by not deploying the forces we had built. The fact that we prepared for self-defense while hoping it would never be necessary is not deception. It is wisdom. Chancellor Myra of the Ophidian Empire hissed softly. You have demonstrated that humanity is as capable of violence as any species. You have abandoned your reputation as peacemakers. You have proven that you are no different from the rest of us. Elena shook her head. No, Chancellor. We have proven exactly the opposite. Watch what our forces are doing. They are destroying Tharos military infrastructure, but they are not targeting civilians. They are disabling ships, but they are not killing crews. They are conducting a military operation with surgical precision to eliminate a threat while minimizing casualties. This is not what the Tharos did to us. This is not what most galactic empires do when they wage war. She gestured to the tactical displays that showed human operations. The Tharos murdered 5 billion of our people in attacks on civilian targets. Our response is to dismantle their military and bring their leaders to trial. We could exterminate them. We have the capability. But we are choosing not to, because that would make us what they are. We are showing the galaxy that there is another way. We are proving that strength and honor are not mutually exclusive. Ambassador Theron was not convinced. And after you have destroyed the Tharos military? What then? Will you demand concessions from the rest of us? Will you use your hidden strength to dominate the galaxy? Elena met his gaze steadily. We will do exactly what we have always done, Ambassador. We will offer cooperation. We will pursue peace. We will work toward a galaxy where all species can thrive without fear of annihilation. The only difference is that now you know we have the power to defend ourselves if anyone else decides to test us the way the Tharos did. On Mars Station, Admiral Webb monitored the progress of Operation Silent Thunder. Every Tharos military installation was being neutralized on schedule. Human casualties were minimal. Tharos military casualties were light considering the scale of the operation. The objective was being achieved. But Webb found no satisfaction in the reports. He stood at the window of his office and looked out at the red surface of Mars below. Dr. Sarah Morrison joined him. She carried a data pad with updated casualty figures. The final count from the colony attacks is confirmed. 5,300,000,000 dead. Another 2 million injured. The psychological trauma across our entire population is incalculable. Webb nodded slowly. And we respond by disabling ships and capturing war criminals. I wonder if the dead would approve of our restraint. Sarah considered the question. I knew people on Meridian Colony. I had colleagues there, friends, former students. Part of me wants to see the Tharos civilization burn for what they did. But another part of me remembers why we chose to hide our strength in the first place. We knew what we were capable of. We knew that unlimited human violence leads to destruction on a scale that makes even genocide look small by comparison. She pulled up historical records on her data pad. Before we reached the stars, we almost destroyed ourselves. Wars that consumed continents. Weapons that poisoned the planet. We came so close to extinction that it changed us fundamentally. When we met alien species, we saw the same patterns playing out on a galactic scale. Empires conquering each other in endless cycles. We decided to break that cycle by being different. By showing that there was another path. Webb turned to face her. And now? Now that we have shown our teeth? How do we go back to being the peaceful species? Sarah smiled sadly. We do not go back. We move forward. We show the galaxy that we can be both strong and merciful. We prove that having the power to destroy does not require using it. We build something new on the foundation of what we have always been, a species that survives by adapting, by learning, by being better than circumstances demand. The operation continued for 3 more days. Human forces systematically dismantled Tharrow's military capabilities across their entire territory. Warships were disabled and towed to secure locations. Weapons platforms were destroyed. Military bases were occupied by human peacekeeping forces. Tharrow's military leaders were arrested and transported to a neutral location where they would face trial before judges from multiple species. Commander Jax Reeves stood on the bridge of the Relentless Dawn as the last Tharrow's military installation surrendered. His crew had performed flawlessly. They had achieved every objective. They had demonstrated human military superiority without becoming monsters. But Jax felt no sense of victory. 5 billion humans were still dead. Nothing they had done here would bring those people back. Sir, his communications officer said, we are receiving a transmission from Tharrow's civilian leadership. They are requesting permission to speak with you directly. Jax straightened in his command chair. Put them through. A Tharrow's female appeared on his view screen. She wore civilian clothing and her expression showed exhaustion and fear. I am Minister Keeler. I speak for what remains of the Tharrow civilian government now that our military leadership has been removed. Jax waited. Minister Keeler continued. Your forces have defeated us completely. You have taken our military strength and left us defenseless. You could destroy our civilization entirely and we could not stop you. I am asking, as one person to another, what happens to my people now? Jax looked at her for a long moment. Minister, your military murdered 5 billion humans. They did this without warning, without mercy, and without justification. They targeted civilian populations deliberately. They committed genocide. He paused. But you did not do these things. Your children did not do these things. The civilians of the Tharrow sovereignty did not vote for these attacks. So here is what will happen. Your military leaders will face trial for war crimes. If they are found guilty, they will be punished. Your military capabilities will remain dismantled. You will not be allowed to rebuild offensive weapons or maintain a fleet capable of threatening other species. But your civilians will be left in peace. Your colonies will not be attacked. Your families will not be targeted. Your people will have the chance to build a future different from your past. Minister Keeler's eyes filled with tears. Why? Why show us this mercy when we showed you none? Jax smiled sadly. Because we are not you, Minister. Because choosing to become the evil that attacked us would dishonor the 5 billion we lost. Because we believe that even in the darkness of war, we can hold on to what makes us human. Compassion, justice, hope for something better. The transmission ended. Jax ordered his fleet to begin withdrawal operations. Human forces would maintain a presence in Tharrow space to ensure compliance with the terms being negotiated. But the war was over. Humanity had won. They had demonstrated their strength. And they had managed to do so without abandoning their principles. President Elena Vasquez addressed the human people from the rebuilt communications center on Earth. Behind her, the planet showed signs of the frantic military mobilization that had occurred. Ships filled orbital space. Defense platforms surrounded the world. Humanity was no longer hiding its strength. My fellow humans, Elena began, we have achieved our military objectives. The Tharrow sovereignty's ability to wage war has been eliminated. Their leaders will face justice for the murders they committed. We have shown the galaxy what we are truly capable of. She paused. But our greatest achievement is not military victory. It is this: we faced the worst tragedy in our history and we responded with justice rather than vengeance. We had the power to exterminate our enemies and we chose not to use it. We proved that being strong does not require being cruel. We demonstrated that humanity can be both powerful and principled. Elena looked directly into the cameras. 5 billion of our people were murdered. Nothing we do will bring them back. Nothing we build will fill the void they left. But we can honor their memory by refusing to become what destroyed them. We can show the galaxy that there is another way. We can build a future where strength serves peace rather than conquest. She concluded her address and turned off the cameras. Around her, advisors and officials waited for direction. Elena knew what had to come next. Contact the Galactic Union Council. Tell them that humanity requests a comprehensive review of all military limitation treaties. We will no longer accept restrictions that leave us vulnerable. We will maintain the defensive capabilities we have revealed. But we will also propose new frameworks for galactic peace that do not rely on species hiding their strength or living in fear. Admiral Webb received the message and smiled. Humanity had been changed by this war. They could never return to being the naive newcomers who trusted that others would honor peace agreements. But they also had not lost what made them unique. They had found a balance between strength and mercy that most galactic civilizations had never achieved. In the Tharos home system, reconstruction began. Human engineers worked alongside Tharos civilians to repair infrastructure damaged in the fighting. Human medical teams treated wounded Tharos soldiers and civilians alike. It was strange and difficult work. The humans helping rebuild were doing so in the shadow of 5 billion murdered. But they did the work anyway because that was who humans were. Captain David Chen returned to Earth orbit and looked down at his home world. The planet seemed different now, harder somehow, more aware of the dangers that existed beyond its atmosphere. But it was still home. It was still worth protecting. He thought about the crew members he had lost in the fighting. He thought about the colonies that no longer existed. He thought about the future that humanity would have to build. Commander Jax Reeves received new orders assigning him to a diplomatic mission. The military forces that had been hidden for centuries would now serve openly as both deterrent and protection. But humanity would also return to its diplomatic efforts. They would work to reform the Galactic Union. They would push for new standards of justice and accountability. They would try once again to build the peaceful future they had always envisioned. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The species that had seemed weak had proven to be among the strongest. The civilization that had accepted limitations had revealed capabilities that shocked even ancient empires. The future was uncertain. Other species might fear human strength. Some might seek to test it. But humanity had sent a clear message that would echo across the stars for generations. We tried peace. We chose mercy. We accepted being underestimated because we valued life over pride. But when you forced us to fight, we showed you what we truly are. We are the species that survives. We are the civilization that adapts. We are humans. And now you know what that means. Remember this lesson. Remember what happens when peace fails. Remember what you face when you push humanity too far. We are not your enemies unless you make us so. But if you do, you will meet the other side of humans. The side that hunted predators to extinction. The side that conquered a planet through determination alone. The side that built civilization from chaos and reached the stars through sheer will. We are still the species that prefers peace. We are still the civilization that values cooperation. But we are no longer the species that will be victimized without response. We have shown you our strength. Now we hope you will help us build a galaxy where that strength never needs to be used again. That is the choice before all of us. Learn from what happened here or repeat it at your own peril. The other side of humans is always present. We simply prefer not to show it. But we will if we must. Always remember that. Always respect it. And perhaps together we can build something better than the cycle of violence that has defined the galaxy for too long. This is our message. This is our promise. This is who we are.